and welcome to the live stream live. I am your host, Joshua Schubart, and I hope you were having a very lovely Monday evening here on the East Coast, or an afternoon, or a late morning, or wherever the hell you are in the rest of the country. Or if you're with us internationally, thank you so much for being here. I have a surprisingly large international following, so I really appreciate you being here. We are going to do the show in flippy floppy. My guest this evening is also, if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching it. And if you're hearing the podcast, I know it's weird to hear things that already happened now that happened in the past, but hopefully it'll mostly still be relevant. But and as usual, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So I will take your questions or your comments. So will Melissa live if you like to ask them, as long as they are appropriate and not hypersexual or weird. Cool. Now that we got that out of the way, my guest is Melissa Navia. She is the captain of the Starship Enterprise on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Full disclosure, I've known Melissa for quite a long time. We came up together a bit through acting classes, through workshop circles, and she's one of the most down-to-earth, coolest, kind, compassionate, hardworking people that I know in this industry. We've been there to offer each other advice. We've been there to lean on each other and to say hell yeah to each other when we've booked things throughout the years. Melissa is just one of the most incredible people that I know, and she is working on something that has such a deep impact on me. Star Trek has been part of my life since I was a wee lad. I got my first intro to it, Star Trek The Next Generation, because I was born in the 80s and I didn't get a chance to grow up with Captain Kirk. I grew up with Jean-Luc Picard, but I've been watching ever since. And this iteration of it may be one of the best ones that I've ever seen. Just with the Trek world, with the how they've brought everything kind of together. They've included a bunch of species. They were talking about a lot of really important shit, much like Star Trek has always done. It remains extremely topical and extremely in the zeitgeist. And they're allowed to talk about things that you may not normally be able to talk about because it's science fiction. And with that fucking genre, you get to basically do whatever the fuck you want. But anyway, I'll shut the fuck up and let me bring up Melissa. Hey, Melissa.
What's going on? What's
How are
happening?
you? Oh,
I'm
you
good.
know.
First of all, you promoted me just now, which I think is awesome, to the
Well,
captain
that's.
of the
Oh
Enterprise,
no, you're the pilot.
the
Well,
helmsman and the pilot, but
yeah,
also, the future is bright and uncertain, so
I know. I
that makes
mean,
me like
Erica
really happy.
Ortegas could be a captain of a ship. Why not, right?
Never say never.
Thank you for the correction. I was just kind of going off the cuff of my brain, but yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
your brain, was just like captain.
I mean, why not? Right? I mean, because what have we had, like Janeway and who was the Discovery captain?
Who's the Discovery captain? Oh my goodness,
Uh,
do you know I was up
I'm
this
having a
morning at
brain.
3 a.m.? I was up at
Yeah,
3 a.m. this
yes,
morning on set,
Discovery.
and all of the captains at the moment currently, I mean, I love that you mentioned my favorite captain growing up, which was Picard.
Yeah, Picard is my
Burnham,
favorite. What?
Michael Burnham.
Yes, Michael Burnham. Yes, she's right here now, and I'm looking at her lovely face. Yes, so there haven't been many female captains, but there should be more, I
And there's
think.
I mean, between Burnham and Janeway, I'm just like, I mean, if captaining is in Ortegas' future, she has two fantastic role models to aspire to be even remotely like. So, and I've gotten to meet both those wonderful ladies, and they are on the convention circuit, and um, they are phenomenal. and that's for all of the Star Trek worlds. The cool thing about doing conventions and being in this franchise and in this family is that, like you were saying, you grew up on The Next Generation, so did I. So now that like I, speak with Jonathan Frakes and Michael Dorn, and I'm like, this isn't real life.
Well, yeah,
It'll never
well,
get not crazy.
Jonathan directed a lot of your episodes, right?
He's
Or like
directed,
at least
yes, he's
two.
so far he's directed two of them, and they have been memorable and some of the best Trek, according to the fans, ever. And that is understandable. He's so extraordinary on set because you see him as as a fellow actor, and he's an amazing director, and he also just brings this joy uh, to filming and the work that we do that I hope, if I'm still kicking around years from now, that I'm able to also exude that. So he's just and he's got that wonderful Riker voice that
Yeah.
is and so hearing that voice on the bridge is uh is wild. But yeah.
Yeah, and like he was one of the only like dudes with a beard on TV, and it's like at that time, and it's not like I
Was
had
he
a
really?
beard.
Like there was not a lot of beards at the time?
No, I mean because everyone was like clean shaven up until like, like 5 or 6 years ago. Like it wasn't, cool to have a beard. So it was really interesting to see
Oh, I
like
love
this
that.
bearded guy. And when I was watching him, like I didn't have a beard. I was I was basically I was like 10 or 11 years old, or however the fuck old I was when I was watching it. But now that I have a beard, I really appreciate that I had like a role model for a beard when I was a
Yeah.
kid.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and I distinctly remember that his beard was like when I was
Like
just like, I talk about
sharp.
like the little crush that I had on Riker. I was just like, I feel like the beard was a large part of that.
So it's so cool. So you were a fan, and now you are on in the universe and on a show, and you're able to represent a thing that you are in love with. Can you talk a little bit about like what that means to you, or maybe you can't yet?
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the questions I always get is, were you a Trekkie when you booked the role? And I'm like, I wouldn't have said I was a Trekkie, but I watched The Next Generation and I was a fan of the show. But the thing with Star Trek is that it's been, in our world for so long, and it's one of those things where it's just like, even if you don't consider yourself a massive fan of it, you know of Star Trek, you know of references to Star Trek, you know the characters. And so it's a very cool thing. And you and I have been acting for a very long time. We've known each other for a long time. We know what it's like when you when you book roles and you work on projects, and nobody knows what you're working on, and your family members and your friends are just like, oh, you've been in something I would know. And so I always, for the longest time, I was just like, oh, I was like, I would love to book something that, like my parents can just tell their friends and they'll immediately know. And I would never have imagined that it would be Star Trek. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Everyone knows Star Trek. And
Yeah.
so, and when I booked the role, it was the audition came through in 2020, and so it was in pandemic times when we were self-taping, and I'm sure you remember that madness where we were self-taping into the void,
Yes.
and everyone didn't know what the future looked like. And so when this role came up, and I knew it was for a new Star Trek show, I was so exhausted from the state of the world and the state of things, and that it probably helped because I didn't have any sort of, oh my God, it's Star Trek. It was just kind of like, here's another role. And also the breakdown was so cool, and it just felt so in line with everything that I auditioned for, and that I feel like really are my strengths, that it just felt very natural. And so the writing was excellent, which has continued into our
Mm.
filming. And so it all just really gelled. And then when I booked it, it's like that thing of like, is this happening? And then I'm sure you can also relate to this, that I don't really get excited about anything until friends and family are sitting in their living rooms watching it, right? Because I'm like, we
Sure.
know what it's like, that you can book something and then
And
it
then be
doesn't
cut.
happen, or you could
Yeah.
shoot something and it gets cut. So when everyone gets all like, like, oh, I'm auditioning for something, or or check me out, I booked this, and I don't do that. I do it like, you'll tell me when you see me on TV, because I've gotten so used to being like, nothing is anything until it's something. So everyone's excitement, um, my late partner Brian, my brother-in-laws, my sisters, my obviously my parents, and friends when they were able to find out, because we kept it secret for quite a bit of time. We're just like, can it's Star Trek, like, that's insane. I was just like, it's not going to settle in until it premieres to the world, and I'm very much like, I do the work. I go to set and I'm like, we're doing the work, and I'm so happy to be on set. I'm so happy to be surrounded by an incredible cast, and the crew has just been phenomenal since day one. And when you hear like crazy set stories and TV stories, and it we don't have any of those,
That's
like everything
great. No,
is,
that's fucking
yeah,
great.
right? It's like, yeah, it's like a great work environment, and you get to tell stories, and you get to develop your character. And in the world of Star Trek, your one character can be many characters. And so in a lot of ways, it's just been a dream come true, in that I get to play Ortegas, who's the helmsman, the pilot of the Enterprise. Um, but in that regard, she gets to be a number of different roles. And so I'm like, um, I could not be happier.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I had this conversation with my wife, I guess, like a couple of days ago, about how, and I know that you can relate to this because you were just kind of saying it, is that like we just get used to doing things that are kind of like incredible, I guess, things that we just that other people perceive as incredible, where you're like, this is my job, I'm just kind of doing it, and we don't have time to like, or not time, it's like a defense mechanism where it's like I can't appreciate this right now, maybe
Totally, right, totally.
maybe later, but now it's like I've got to like do it and see what's next, like because
Yeah,
like um which does kind of suck a little bit, because I feel like in a lot of other fields you're allowed to just kind of like enjoy your wins more, where in our industry, especially in America, it's very fleeting, just because of how fast everything moves, and how you have to have that thick skin, and you have to just kind of like be like, whatever, everything's whatever, just so that you don't go
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
absolutely right. There's always that level of, what's next? What are you working on next? So there's only so much time to appreciate what you're working on now. Um, but like you said, it's like, when when the work is what's important, um, when the work is what's important, you're going and doing the work. Is it phenomenal that I am working on this amazing show? Absolutely. But every day I can't be like, oh, I'm on Star Trek. Even though there's an element of that, when you come on the bridge, like there'll be moments up there, and I'm just like, this is amazing. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you do the work.
Yeah.
Like I had this funny thing in season one, when we had this fantasy episode where I get to sword fight on the Enterprise, and I'm just, so many like childhood dreams, like just running into each other. It was just so cool. And I remember our wonderful stunts team. They were like, they'd always be like, just have fun, just have fun. And I'm like, I'm such like a Virgo, perhaps, where everything's just like, work has to be done right. But it was just like this running joke where I'd be like, I'll have fun. I'll have fun when it looks fantastic on TV. It's like, work hard. And so like I'd be going off to set, at like 3, 4 in the morning, like I was doing this morning. And I remember one morning, Brian was just like, he was like, have fun. And he was like, no, I mean, work hard, work hard. Right. No fun, until I'm
No
like, thank
fun.
you, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they're right. There's that element of just like, we appreciate how incredible this is, how grateful we are to be on set. But at the end of the day, what matters is the story, and how it shows up on the screen and to audiences. And so, you have to, we're professionals, and then also always just looking to the future. Um, and I think all of that is valid, is valid in what's happening in the present, being grateful for the fact that we're on set, and that our work has paid off. And especially right now too, with the state of our industry, it's going through all these changes and
Oh yeah.
ups and downs. And it's we're everything is gonna, I always try to remain as positive as possible. Everything will come back. But right now we're going through changes, and to be on a show that is so well received, has such an incredible fandom, and is critically acclaimed,
And you're
and
going to get all
also
your seasons. You're getting all your seasons, which almost
yes,
never
yes,
happens. It's so
yes, and
good.
to be surrounded by like just legitimately cool people, I'm like all of that makes the getting up at 3 in the morning worth it.
Yeah. Well, so we actually got a really cool question from the audience. Um, and it is it much harder to do a show like Star Trek than a more conventional like show like, like Law and Order, or like one that like isn't in space?
Yes. Well, I would say that if I I am much happier doing Star Trek than I would be doing a procedural,
Well, yeah, but that's a
and
yeah.
the thing about that though, there's a lot of levels to that. Like one, it's just like I said, like you get to play so many different characters, and there's so much potential when you're, a couple hundred years in the future. Also, I am a very unique case in that I am a born and bred through and through New York actor who has never been on Law and Order. So there's a little bit of like a little, no, you too, Josh.
Yup, me too.
Oh, I love
I've
it. I
auditioned.
love it. I
I've
love it.
auditioned for that show.
I barely even auditioned for it though. Like I
I would
think
have, yeah.
I think in like you were talking about how we used to do workshops and things together, like the amount of casting directors that would always be just like, you are so specific. They're like, you need to like, um, or our friend, mutual friend, Kim Graham.
Mhm.
I remember she was like, you
Shout
have
out
to,
Kim.
shout out to Kim. She was like, you have to keep meeting people. She's like, you have to meet so many people. This was years ago when I first met her, first started doing workshops. She was like, you have to meet so many people, and you will find your home, is how she put it. She was like, because you are specific and you are not, somebody necessarily who's probably going to be getting auditions all the time because people are trying to figure out what to make of you. And I really like somebody else might have taken that the wrong way, but for me, I'm just like, no, I'm like, you lean into your uniqueness, you lean into that thing that you do that nobody else can do, and that maybe people do have a hard time placing because then when you do find the right place, the home, if you will, it's gonna make an impact. And
Yo.
so yeah, I mean, I can't even like it's hard to even I don't even know like if I fell into a Law and Order casting office, I don't know what would happen. Um, but yeah, so there's always like this bit of me that's always just like I'm happier in space where the future seems to get me. But I think going back to that question, I think what they're referring to is like, what is it like when you're, let's say, on the bridge, for example, and on our view screen, right? We're either speaking to an alien race, or we are chasing a ship, or we are running from a ship, or we are going through a space battle. And we, of course, don't see that in real time. But for me, coming from a theater background, I find the bridge is such a stage, right? And I love
Mhm.
it. I love it so much because it's like it's all make believe at the end of the day. You could even argue that everything we do in life, right, is to a certain extent make believe, and so you are figuring, your way through it as it's happening. But so much of that work is just like you have to believe it as the actor, which is the
Mm.
same, in anything, in a procedural as well. Like, it's all, the best performances are the ones that, are so kind of, you know, they don't even realize that you are acting, right? Like it's like those are the ones where it just feels like it's real, and so much of that comes where you have to believe it. And so there's a thing as the pilot on the bridge where a lot of fans have told me throughout the last few years that like it really feels like Ortegas is flying the ship. And what is it that she does that, like, why do we feel that way? Like after all these Star Trek shows, like what is it that she's doing that? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing as Melissa portraying the character so much, except that uh, it's very important to me that it's real. Uh, so if at any point I feel like I'm sitting there and I'm like, all of this is just, not real, I might as well go home, right? Because I know that for the
Yeah.
fans it's real, and so for me it has to be real. And so um, and again to the writing, like when the writing is so good, and like we could be there, and we could be, we could be shooting a whole day on the bridge, and there's some sort of a very complex space battle, and things are hitting us from here, and we're trying to get away from here, and there's a black hole, and there's a and there's the Klingons coming this way, and it really feels like a war room, like we're really like mapping it out, and it's happening, and so you just lean into that. Um, and so for me, especially because I've done it now for like we're in the middle of shooting, excuse me, season four. Season three is coming out in a month, and so we've been doing this for a number of years now. It's like uh, it's like the easiest and the coolest thing to do, right? Not the easiest, but it's in that like it's not difficult for me. And also we also shoot a lot on an AR wall, which is like a new green screen
Yeah.
situation, which is where the whole world is pretty much on these TV screens that surround you, and so it's much better than a green screen because you get to if you're on a planet, you're on the planet, you're looking at it, and you feel like you're there. And then
So
they
so
build.
it's like a volume. So it's like you're like in a volume.
Yes, a volume being like, you mean like
Like in like
surrounded?
yeah, so like in the Mandalorian, they're like in like a like that type of like world where it's like a bunch of screens and
Yes, yes, yes,
then
yes.
there are some like practical pieces, but
Exactly, yeah.
most of it's
Exactly, right.
completely digital. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so there's that, right? And there's a lot of practical pieces. Like, they'll build out, entire worlds, you know, uh, in the middle of that of of the AR screens. And
No, that makes sense. I mean, that must be great because it's so immersive, like,
so yeah, yeah,
and you also have something that you can like put your feet on that like isn't like you looking at a tennis ball. So yeah,
totally, totally. So for
yeah,
me, I'm sure there's if you ask all of us on set, everyone's going to give a different answer, but it's the same idea as if we were doing same idea at the end of the day, right? Good acting is good acting, and it's like you have to believe it, you have to make it real, you have to make it what you bring to the character that nobody else can bring, should shine through. And when it does shine through, the audience um, responds to that. And and if anyone is watching, I would love to be on Law and Order one day. One day. and,
one day, one day.
and I can bring all my Star Trek wisdom with me. But yeah, I think we both just have to find the role that only we can play.
I agree. I mean, that's a thing that I've heard through my whole career too, is that I am also very hyper specific. Um, I think we might have like bonded over that in like
Totally,
in the
yeah,
beginning. Where and I have found my place and I have found my people, but I too had to meet literally every person that I could possibly meet. Um, and Kim, she likes to give really great advice, but she told me too, like, I'd love to call you in for my shows, but I don't have anything for you. um not that you can't play like a secret service agent, but you would be way bigger than everyone else, like you don't fit in, like you don't blend in, like you don't.
yeah,
um
yeah.
and I
And
know
I
that
think
that's
there's
what you.
also, yeah, I think there's a level too of like when it's also a smaller role. Because I was thinking about this, like I'm 5'3", right? And I always like to
Mhm.
say that I think I'm tall. I'm tall
Yeah,
enough. Like for me, I'm like I
yeah,
walk around like I'm tall. Like when people are just like oh, you're smaller than we expect. I'm like, well, I think I'm the right size.
I think I'm the right size for this. Yeah, yeah,
Yes. And for me, I'm like um I play a lot of roles where it's like I have a background in martial arts. I have a background in stage combat, in sword fighting, and I'm always like, I present myself as just like, I can handle myself and I can play roles where I handle myself well. And yet, when it would be going for like a co-star or like something that the audience immediately has to be like, ah, this is the person who can beat up three guys. Sometimes when it's a smaller role, I feel that our casting director friends can chime in on this as well one day when I speak with them. But like, it's like it needs to like make sense in the moment, right? Like,
yeah. It
especially if
does.
you don't have a whole backstory. So
Yeah,
there's all like these smaller roles that I'd be like, oh, why can't I go in for them? They'd be like, oh yeah, you're too small. They need someone bigger. They need someone this. They need someone that. And I'm like, and this literally it didn't matter that I was the size I was. Like she's a combat veteran, in addition to being a pilot, um, a starship pilot, and we have scenes where we have our security officer is an amazing actress who is also we're similar sized, and she can handle everybody, and nobody ever questions the fact that we're not significantly taller or bigger, and so there's this level of like, but I understand, I like, there's this level of like, I completely understand like why in a show when you need someone just to come in and that needs to be the thing that they play, the audience needs to understand them as like the bodyguard, if you will.
Right.
um
Yeah.
and so that's, it kind of speaks to the whole thing where it's just like, you like the example you were giving where it's just like you're going to be too big for this
Secret
role.
Service or, yeah,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't make sense in the world and in the time that they have to explain it.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because like I auditioned for a ton of co-stars and then I didn't really start to book stuff until it was bigger roles. Um but I kind of had to like grind through, like, casting likes us. They think we're great. They think we're good actors and they like us as people. But like you're supposed to quote unquote like do the small things to get to the medium-sized things to get to the big things. um so I auditioned for like a metric fuck ton of small things, and I would get really good feedback, blah blah. And it's like you were saying, it just didn't fit. I didn't make any sense. I was two inches taller than the lead role. I had more muscle mass than the dude that's like supposed to be the big huge jack dude. Like it's like all that stuff. Um, and like so I'm not like, oh, so I just started, but like, so I like once I started to get in the room for like recurring roles and like guest star roles and things of that nature, that's when I started to book. um and that's fine. That's what you want to do as an actor. You want to have more shit to do. But that's not everyone's story. That is literally like the antithesis of the average story.
Totally. Yeah,
So
everyone's story is different. When people try to be like, oh, well, this is how so and so did it, and therefore, and I'm like, that just it never made sense to me. It never, uh, when we would be in workshops and people would ask, be like, how many people, do you see for a role, or how many people go with, just to me, like questions like that, I'd be like, I don't care. My whole thing is it doesn't matter if you see, 100 people or 10 people for the role. It's am I going to stick out, and how am
right.
I going to do that in a way that's authentic to me? And I'm not trying to be what you want me to be. And also in a way too, it's helped too because I've been told specific, where it's like I just kind of, I was never trying to be what you wanted me to be. Like this is what I am. And so take it or leave it. It either works for the role or it doesn't. And I've also like this past the break that we had between season 3 and season 4, I auditioned for some things, and I loved all my auditions, and when I saw who was casting it, I'm like, yeah, that made more sense, and that made more sense. And I completely, I can see why somebody else got it, and I just know that the next thing that I book will be something that is uniquely, something that I can make it something that only I can make it, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's exciting to me, so I don't need, for any aspiring actors out there who are watching this, when you think like you have to get these, 2, 3, 4 co-stars, like maybe not. Maybe the whole thing is that you're going to be going in. It's the same story. I was testing for pilots well before, I was getting a couple of co-stars, and it was like
Yeah.
people were like, well, that doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, you know what, life doesn't make any sense, so I don't
No,
know what to
life
tell you.
life is life is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense at all. So
Right.
yeah, like for real. What is this microphone doing on TikTok? Okay, so now I have a microphone on TikTok. So if anyone's been trying to watch this on TikTok, you've only been hearing Melissa, which is fine, because she's great. But I'm sure it was fucking weird. Um, we got a question, another great question. It's right under the man offering me $1,000 for a picture of my penis. Um,
You
does
have an
the
audience
environment?
that is very interesting.
They're very interesting. Does the environment on the show allow for much improv?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. So it does, like everybody is very open to hearing from us as actors, as you know, and especially because we know our characters so well, if there's something that we want to add to it. Um, but I would say this, because the writing is so well done. I'll speak for myself, and I just think writers are rock stars, and particularly ours. Uh, and I value the work that they've put into the script. You know, since day one, I've always been very like, you know, this is what's in the script, right? So this is what I'm going to do. And if I want to change it, like there's, you know, writers, they write a sentence. There's a reason that the sentence was written that way, right?
Yeah.
And so on in season one, it was interesting because we were, you know, the whole city of Toronto where we shoot was in lockdown, and our set was also very much, you know, COVID restricted. And so for most of the season, we weren't able to see our writers on set, which is the norm and which now happens. Our writers, our
Unfortunately.
producers, our showrunners are on set with us.
Yes.
But at the time in season one, it was difficult because of all the border restrictions. And so we would want to, if we would want to change something, you know, I would, you know, they would be watching at all times, but we would kind of run it by them. But it was very, very little. It would be if something like was just like, I'm like, you know, I don't feel like my character would necessarily, it doesn't feel, that doesn't ring true. And also, it's a very collaborative environment, which I hear is also not necessarily the norm on every set. So here I've become very spoiled in that, like, you know, everyone really listens to what we think, on the acting side or as the actor side, like what we think for the characters and what we want for them, and just kind of takes that into consideration, whether it plays or not, or whether it can actually be working to the story is another thing. But from the beginning, I remember speaking with Henry and Akiva, our showrunners, our amazing showrunners who I adore so much. And they were like, "What do you see for Ortegas for her backstory?" And they had a
Mm.
whole, you know, they had the whole backstory, but in terms of like where she comes from, and so from the beginning, they did a really great job of incorporating elements of all of us as actors and human beings, and incorporating little bits of what we bring to the role into the role, including the legacy characters, and that's not an easy thing to do. So our Spock and our Uhura and our Pike and our Number One and our Mbenga and our Chapel. So these characters that, you know, fans know, you know, what they're going to become, and they've
Oh
seen
yeah,
them.
I didn't even think about that, Melissa. Like that's got to
Yeah,
be
but there's
really
still,
hard for
yeah,
them. Yeah.
totally. But there's still an
They're
element like,
doing great, right? Like they're doing fucking great jobs with it. But I didn't even think about like of course. And like watching the show, I was like, oh, they feel like you know what I know. And fuck, like oh like of course, but like as an actor, God, that's so much pressure, like especially like with like not saying that what you're doing isn't like pressury, but like you're your own first time creation, which is so badass too. Like, but but like playing Spock and then all the history that like everyone knows about Spock. Damn, bro. Damn.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different level of responsibility. Like it speaks to the talent of everyone in my cast, that like the research that has gone into the roles that they play, right, is so, you can see it, right? Like you said, like you watch them and you're just like, you know, that's that character that I have known for years, and yet there's something to them, that there's something about it that it's never been done before like this. And
Yeah.
then speaking to the talents of our casting directors and our producers and our creative team, the way that they put us all together, you know, when the feedback, when we first premiered in season one, and everyone was just like, it feels like this crew has always existed. Like they have always been. Like it wasn't like the first season was just like these people just met each other. It was like, it just feels like
Seamless.
they have just, yeah, you know, it just feels like we've just now just stepped into the world that's already existed. But to get back to the improv thing, so for me, I'm always just like, if there's ever anything I want to change even a little bit, like, you know, even sometimes like a word, like I will now, you know, I like checking with the writer, and so often it's just like, yeah, absolutely. If that feels better, do that. Um, but it was for our, in season two, it was our crossover episode with Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome from Lower Decks, where they brought a really fun level of like improv to it that for me was very cool to see on set, because I was so kind of like, you know, this is what's on the page, this is what I'm going to do. And if for some reason it doesn't jive, then I'll speak with them and we'll change it up. But I would see, you know, like Jack would come up come in there in a scene and he would just make up a line that was just like, he gave backstory to Ortegas that, was not scripted, which I loved and I will forever be thankful to him for. Um,
Yeah.
and and from that, now we have created some additional story. But so yeah, so long answer, short question. Like, yeah, we can totally improv. There's a very like just a very cool open atmosphere. And if somebody does think it's just like that's not working, then we adjust it. But everybody comes to set just prepared and on time and like ready to work and ready to work together. And like, I'm like, this is how it should be. But when you hear like crazy stories from other people and from past sets, I'm just like, I don't even know.
I
I
was
don't even
very
know how you
fortunate
would.
too that like my biggest role ever so far was on a show like that. It was on the Tick, and also like it was very
Yeah.
like fantastical too. So and I was very lucky too with that. Like my role was a brand new role to the to this world too, because the like Tick has its whole history. So watching the people playing legacy characters on that show too was like, wow, they need to like bring in stuff from the comics and from the cartoon and from the first time that the show happened, because it's such a, it's such a known world. So not having to do that also, like, it's a little bit more freeing, and it lets you like create a cool new person in a world that you already know really well, which is what I liked about it. Um,
Yeah.
um, but also, I feel like the reason is from me watching you. The reason that it looks so real that you're flying the fucking ship is because you are so committed to the given circumstances, which is like, which for those of you watching that don't know what I just said, the given circumstances are the imaginary stakes, like the like things that are happening in the scene or in the world that you have to believe in and you have to commit to. And if you don't, then it looks fake and it looks weird. It is one of the basic things that you have to do as an actor, but it's also one of the hardest things that you have to learn how to do as an actor. Um, and I've been watching Melissa do this for over a decade. You're incredibly talented, and seeing you take on a role like this, which I've been waiting for you to fucking book something like this forever. Um, and watching you do it, and when watching you do it so adeptly, because I also have a fighting background, which you know too. So like getting to watch someone who's been so fucking prepared for their entire fucking life and their entire career just let loose is spectacular. I'm
Thank you.
so happy to see it, and I know everyone else is too. But shit, like, it's so
Oh,
cool to
thank you,
see.
thank you, thank you, Josh.
Yeah,
Thank you. It feels really good. And like what we were talking about before, where it's just like, it's hard to sometimes appreciate the moment, but when you do have those moments to be just like, yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, like, every step up in your career, brings with it its new difficulties and problems, and but that's life, right? Like it's
yeah,
everything is with more things come more responsibilities, and um but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I and I also see all the roles that I've booked to get here and all the things that didn't work out necessarily as I had hoped, and how it still all did work out, right? Like it all, and
yeah.
there's still many stories to come and many roles to come. And um I I have no doubt or concern about that, because it's just like, for me, I'm like, I'm so used to having hustled for so long, and never being like, I've never really questioned if this is the thing that I want to do in life, right? And I think that's
Mm,
also that has helped, right? Where it's just always been like, no, there's never really been a plan B, because there's no plan B. Like I'm
right.
gonna tell. I'm a storyteller, and I think there was a big actor recently, and he was just saying, like, he's like, oh, when people say actors are storytellers, I don't get that. I was like, okay, that's fine, but I'm a
Yeah,
storyteller.
it was the dude from it was
It's Kieran
Jeremy.
Culkin, right?
Oh, Kieran was it Kieran Culkin?
I think it was, yeah, yeah. I'm
It
pretty
was
sure it
one of
was
them from
from
Succession. Yeah,
Succession, yeah.
yeah.
And it was just, and I only saw the sound bite of that, so I
It
didn't see
was
the
Kieran
full
Culkin.
quote.
Yeah, yeah, it
I didn't
was.
see the full quote, but it was just like, uh, but I always find sometimes that I often find rather that like sometimes, actors who have big platforms, kind of you get the opportunity to say things that kind of like not that it trivializes necessarily what we do. And again, I only saw that soundbite that he said. But for me, like saying that I'm a storyteller and I'm also a writer too, so maybe that's why the term works so well for me. But I'm like, we are bringing stories to life. Like that's, we can't do it without the writers. The writers can't do it with us. We can't do it without our film crew. We can't do it out without our directors. We can't do it without our casting directors. And that's one of the things I love so much about this industry is you can't be, you can't function on your own. Like it has to be, it's a massive, massive team effort.
We're all one
But
nacho.
for, yeah, yeah. But like, yeah, but like for me, it's like, it's such a, this idea that I've always just been like, I'm a performer and I tell stories for a living, and it's absolute madness. And the fact that you would, you know, choose not to, do so many of those, milestones in life, that all your friends are doing this and doing that, and you're just like, I'm gonna keep hustling and I'm gonna keep auditioning and I'm gonna make this work. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, right? Because it's like, everybody else can, and this, right? You get rejected,
No one else
a,
is
a
gonna believe in
bazillion
you
times,
more
right?
than
There's
you.
no,
Yeah,
right, right. You have to walk into the room with a level of cockiness that I feel has kept me from going insane.
yeah.
And but thank you for saying what you said, because it does feel like a culmination in a lot of ways. This role of so many roles that I've gone out for, so many things that I have booked. Like I booked a beautiful role on Billions where I played an astronaut that was supposed to get to Mars, and I won't spoil that for anybody who hasn't seen it. So you should watch Billions season 2 in particular, episode
I mean,
4.
you can spoil that.
Um,
It's been out for like 5 years or something,
oh,
or
I
like
guess
three
yeah, I
three
guess at
years.
this point you could spoil it. Well, she's supposed to go to Mars, right? And she doesn't get to go to Mars. Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you haven't seen it,
Yeah, I
still
mean,
see it. It's a great
you
episode.
can
But she
watch it,
doesn't
but
get to
yeah,
go to Mars. But throughout the episode, it's so interesting because so much of what she says, Elena Gabriel was the character's name, are all these Star Trek references. And then the funny thing too is like the following season, they wanted to bring the character back. And this is like, this is how the industry works. Like oh, it would take 30 minutes of this interview, so we won't even get into it. Into like all the weird background shenanigans of like what happened in the following season when they wanted to bring me back. And then I was up for a co-star on Homeland.
hmm
And you know what it's like, you go like months and months and you don't book anything, and then finally you book something and it's kind of maybe going to conflict with another thing, and you're just like, where was all of this for
yeah.
all
Who
the
was this
months that I
before?
was, and it became this
Yeah,
whole thing between like players in the background where it was just like, well, can she be on Homeland if she's going to be on Billions? And what about the schedules? And are they going to change her hair? And they're going to do this? And I'm sitting there being like, I might lose my health insurance tomorrow. And I
right.
said, and there's like a bazillion other actors that are able to be on multiple TV shows and multiple things. And I remember getting on my bike and riding out to the water in Long Island City because I was like, this business is so maddening. And I ended up doing the Homeland role, and they ended up, for reasons that I don't know, they ended up cutting the kind of the arc that she had in the new season. It was going to be just a one episode thing. From a writing perspective, I completely agreed with them. I was just like, I felt like it made sense. But I remember like I lost my health insurance, because as a
Yeah,
union
yeah.
SAG-AFTRA actor, if you don't make a certain amount, for our audience members watching who don't know what we're talking about, um, and if you don't make a certain amount in a period of time, you lose your health insurance. And so I just remember it was just like such a thing, or it was just like I was like, oh, this business is so tough. And then fast forward to this role, and now when fans find out that I was on Billions as this astronaut, and I was like, not only did she like not get to go to Mars, but then Melissa lost her health insurance when she didn't recur in the following season. But I was so happy that I got to do Homeland with our mutual wonderful friend Brian Michael Smith.
Right, Michael,
Um,
but
yeah,
yeah,
and so here I am now. I was like, I have health insurance again, and I'm on Star Trek, and I'm going well beyond Mars. So it's just like you have to laugh. I'm like, this is just,
yeah, it's a
this
crazy
business
industry
is
that
weird.
you can change. Everything can change in a fucking instant. In an
Yeah.
instant. So we got a comment and two questions. So Melissa reminds me of a young Trinity in the Matrix. She looks
Oh,
like
thank you.
someone who can really kick some ass. I agree,
Oh,
and she literally
thank you.
can. So, um, oh yeah. Question for Melissa: are the ship background extras distracting, or do they help immerse in the scene?
Oh no, our background actors are wonderful. We could not have the Enterprise without them, and they are many and very varied because we have our Starfleet officers, we have, our background. We have some of the most jaw drop jaw dropping alien prosthetics I've seen, and sometimes they're just walking in the background, and I'm like, how is that? How are you not actually from a different planet because you
Yeah,
look incredible. um but no, they definitely they make the scene right. In season one we had less background because of all the COVID restrictions. And so throughout the seasons, now that we're shooting season four, whenever we have like these big scenes, like it's still sometimes just like, oh, there's so many of us.
yeah,
um but no, background in any project, but especially when you want to show the working life of a ship. It's important to kind of see that there's a lot happening beyond the main crew, right? Because that's otherwise, we'd be on a very, very small ship, and our ship is quite large.
right. Next question from Nate Summers. Question: what was Melissa's longest slash hardest day on Strange New World set, and how did she get through it?
Oh my goodness. Good question, Nate. There's been so many days. This hardest day.
So many hard, terrible days on set.
Yeah, so many. I know, right? I know,
Horrible
so
days.
so hard. Yeah, so difficult
Horrible.
being in space. No, but there's been like season two was particularly um difficult for me because I was grieving. And I spoke a lot about it at the time, and I still speak a lot about it. But
Yeah.
um, I was grieving, and it was also, I could not have asked for a better place to go to, a better job to get up and go to, right? Um, and so I would be on set, and there would be times where it's just, it was very tough, but I felt so protected protected by everybody and supported by everybody, and that extended from our actors through to our showrunners, through to the studio. And so it's funny because like I remember people were saying that they thought that maybe the emotional scenes were really hard for me in season two, or some people were just like, oh, did Ortegas not get more screen time in season two because Melissa was grieving? And I said, no, 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 no. I said quite the opposite. I said,
Hmm.
um, and I try to clarify this in case there's any confusion, but as I'm learning, when you have a bit of a platform and famed, stories will get convoluted and there's only so much you can do. But just to be very clear, no storylines were changed because my life was upended and I was grieving. No storylines were changed. Now, if I had needed more time, my producers and showrunners, they were just like, we would have given it to you, we would have had things rewritten and changed, but they didn't do any of that because they didn't have to. So every single day I had to be on set, and because of this amazing haircut, I have to be on set quite frequently to get it cut. My hair grows very fast, which is a good problem to have, but I'm on set all the time. So if I'm not filming, I'm there for fittings, I'm there for rehearsals, I'm there for this, that, the other thing. um, but I was always ready to go to set. I'm such a professional, and the work comes first, that I was just like, it's like, we're gonna have a cry, and then we are gonna we're gonna shoot this turbo lift scene. Um, but there would be times where it was just the hardest thing was shooting and filming and playing Joy in that season.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was hard. So getting like in that season, I also had the scene in an episode where there's my brain again because that 3 a.m. wake up. was it, there was this episode from season 2 where Ortegas has this has that wonderful I fly the ship arc, where she literally has to remember what she does so well and for a living in order to save the Enterprise. And so that was hard in that it was, hard in the way that any emotional scene is hard, but it's also like it's my favorite thing um, in many ways to play. So that was like a tough day because you have to kind of you're completely in it, and then talk about in that particular scene. Um, we were getting buffeted by what were we getting buffeted, like meteors, like giant rocks were hitting the ship. And so that was definitely a moment of just like we're not actually getting hit by rocks. We have like our script supervisor and our AD shouting boom,
Boom
and then
rock.
I'd have to be right where boom, right, and then also you're having like a breakdown and you literally can't. You've lost your memory, and and like the whole world is currently on your shoulders. So I remember like a scene like that though. At the end of the day, I was so happy because I was able to bring something to it that even I hadn't expected that morning. But I wouldn't even like in answer to that question. I don't even think that's like the hardest thing. I would think that um, the musical episode for me was hard, not because of the musical aspect of it. I come from a musical theater background, and so I loved all of that. But I think what was tough for me in that was these really joyful moments that I was so proud of myself at the end of that episode because when you see me like like Ortegas is legitimately so happy. She's dancing, she's singing, she's. But I remember on those days, I would just be like, I'm like Brian knew that we were going to do a musical episode, um, and he was a singer and a musician and had just a fantastic voice, and so that was difficult. Was just being like, I know you can see this, I know you are with me, but I'd love to go home and share this with you,
Yeah.
so that for me was tough, but it didn't, when I was on set, my God, I brought it every single day. As I've said many times, my only gripe with the musical episode is that Ortegas did not get a full song. But from a writing perspective, it made sense because the reason in the musical episode why we all break out into song is actually science backed. It's like a scientific explanation, um, which is like when I tell people they're like, was it? And I'm like, watch the episode again. Like it's like there's like everything we do as crazy as it is, like there's like it always like goes back to like something rooted in like actual science.
Well,
So
that's
but
Star
but the
Trek,
whole thing
man.
was yeah, right.
Yeah.
The whole thing
Yeah.
was like that people would break out into song because their emotions just got the best of them. And so the fact that like Ortegas is throughout the ship is just like, I'm cool, I'm great, I'm not having relationship issues, I'm not having any sort of emotional, concern that I can't address on my own. And so like, the few lines on her own that she has is just like, I'm a pilot and I'm awesome. And so it made sense that she didn't get her own just like, why don't you love me song? Because I'm like, she's
Right.
like, everyone loves me. I'm fine.
I'm the
So
best. I'm the best. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but it just kind of came up naturally. But I mean, I remember, obviously I remember that time period. Um, and seeing you speak so publicly and so openly about it and about the nature of grief, and you still do now, um, it's really important, especially when you are so visible, um, and it's a thing that I've learned, that me sharing parts of myself to the people that are part of like my m- my following is like extremely important and also kind of validating because you don't feel so alone. I messaged you specifically to like thank you for your sharing because I was also going through a period of grief, and because I lost my father and I didn't know how to process it, and I saw you posting about it and I was like, shit, like I'm not alone, and it's super important. And I'm so happy that you do that because people will just keep it inside and it'll destroy them. And you have to be open about things and you have to talk about them. So it's so cool. It's so cool of you.
Yeah, I think with grief, I think there's a lot of unprocessed grief of all kinds out there, um, and I think we see it in so many ways, and it's not acknowledged as unprocessed grief. For me, my main reason for speaking so openly was because it was just like I was like, the world should know Brian, do you know? Like and he should be here right next to me, do you know, at these events and at these things, and just like, I would not be in Star Trek if it was not for him. And I've said that
Yeah.
before, and I'll say that forever because that's so important to me. Like, you know, when you and I know you can speak to this as well, but like having a supportive team, whether that's friends, whether that's family. I have such a supportive, amazing, immediate family that has kept me going through the years. But Brian in particular, do you know, he was like my guy. He was my right hand person. He was during the pandemic, when everything had closed. He was doing all the self tapes with me. He read for me with the role of Ortegas. He edited my video that went straight to casting. He was just like, this is the audition tape we should send. And he uh he was incredible. And I think it's so important that people, when you lose your person, when you lose somebody, or for somebody who knows somebody who has physically lost somebody, um, that the story is not over. Do you know? And so this idea that, like, there should be a time when you stop speaking openly about that person is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I'm fortunate, but it's also in a lot of ways by choice, that the people that I surround myself with regularly um, are people who were friends of Brian's, his family, my family, but people who like understand that, like, um, that to speak about Brian is something that is something I will always do, something they will always do. Like, I think when people speak to somebody who's grieving, there's a concern, especially over time, that they shouldn't bring up that person's name anymore. And that is absolutely ridiculous and crazy. Or people who are afraid of, saying the wrong thing. It's like, you know what, you're going to say the wrong thing, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. Like, just the biggest thing is just like, however you can remember your person, and there's so many ways to do that. Um, and and so for me, like, speaking about grief and being open about it, when people tell me that you're so open and it's so incredible how open you are, there's a certain part of me that's just like, I'm like, grief is the thing that we are all going to go through, right? It's like life and death, right? Like, it's the one thing that really we all can agree, like, it's all going to happen to us, but yet it seems to be the thing that people are so uh, nervous about discussing, talking about, pushing to the side. And when um, something happens where you lose a person, especially at a time when your whole world is changing, like, it just really alters, like, your view on everything. It alters your worldview, and it alters just the way that you move through everything. And so I've just done my best to make sure that my experience, that people can see it. And like you said, like you reaching out to me, and the amount of fans and the amount of people who have lost partners, who they watch Star Trek with, who they either watch
Mm.
Strange New Worlds with, or brought them to Strange New Worlds, or who they grew up in as a family member is the reason they watch Star Trek now. And when I meet them at conventions, I mean, it is it's really special. It's a wonderful bond. And when I speak with widows and widowers, I know that they understand things on a level that other people don't. And so, yeah. So for me, talking about it all, it's just like, it can be heavy, but it's also the best thing. Like, when I talk about Brian, and it makes me laugh and it makes me smile. And I tell everybody, I'm like, the Ortegas that you saw in season one, that everybody fell in love with, I'm like, she is a product of so much of what Brian brought out in me and brought out in my work.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you that it is important that you do speak about these people and you speak about them as often as you like, just because not to sound woo woo or whatever, but they had a hand in creating the person that you are. So by speaking about them and acknowledging them and sharing how that happened, they're still around. They're still alive. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's great. It's great. Yeah, yeah. So it's cool that you do that. So thank you.
Yeah, and then also too, like sometimes I'll say like, jokingly, but also not jokingly, like when you think about like when you hear from, you hear from people on social media, you hear from your friends or whatever, and there's so many people who they talk about all the time, and you just want them to, you want to not hear about this particular person who's well alive,
Yeah, yeah,
and like, and boring and whatever. And God bless all the parents out there and the people with wonderful kids and babies, but I have to hear every single day about the not very interesting thing that your person did and this person did. And I'm like, and then people are like, when somebody dies, they're like, we're supposed to just stop talking about them. I'm like, no. I'm like, I have to hear about mundane, silly things all the time. And I'm just like, you're going to hear about of how amazing my guy was. And it also, too, um, gave me an appreciation in this industry, which I always had anyway. But, and especially, I mean, we all deal with it, but I do think women especially, like, as you start to get older, everybody starts to focus on just like, how old you are. And so it's been a very big thing for me that like that I not shy away like when people don't want to talk about their age or how old they are. And I'm just like, when my partner was young, he was in his 40s. And so when people are just like, telling me that like, oh, now it looks like you're getting old. And I'm like, you kidding me? I'm like, every single year that I'm here, every single year that I am able to be like, I'm still here and standing. And especially in this industry where for women, it's so taboo to talk about your age or
yeah.
to feel that you can do certain things at a certain age. And I'm just like, I want none of it. I said, I say my age loud and clearly. And anybody who doesn't, think that I should do that, they are not a member of my team. So that's also a thing where it's just like, there's just such a focus on you know, staying an age forever. And I'm just like, but when you die and you're young, you're in your 40s, everyone's like, oh, you were so young. But then like when you're that same age and you're alive and kicking around, everyone's like, oh, you're getting old. I'm like, oh, can't have it both
Like,
ways, right?
yeah,
So I'm
seriously, it's
like,
like, yeah.
yeah. So it's
So,
definitely that's also been an influence on another thing that I advocate for and I'm loud about.
and you should be, because it doesn't matter. Like, like it's like age and shit like that doesn't matter. Like,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
it really doesn't. Like,
Like
it's
so much stuff, Josh, doesn't matter. Do you know? It's like we would be so much better off if I was just like I was like so much of the crap that we're dealing with in the world right now. I'm like so much is simple if we just didn't complicate things. Um, so
mm-hmm.
yeah, but that's a whole other podcast.
It is a whole
It's a
nother
whole other
podcast.
hour.
One that I'd be happy to have with you on.
Yes, yes.
We are coming to the end of our time. This flew by, as I knew it would. But I've got two quick questions from the audience, and then one quick question from me, and then you can go to sleep. I swear to God.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Only to wake up right again.
Only to wake up immediately and go to a forest. So what do you think Ortega's mirror universe version is like?
Oh, is that a question from an audience member? Or is that a question from
Yeah, it is. No,
Josh?
that's not me. I'm not
Oh,
smart enough for that question. It's from Nate again. I don't normally
oh,
take
love
two
it.
from the same person, but this is a good fucking question.
Um, yeah, I don't know because there's so much that she could be in the mirror universe. Like I know what, the the traits of Ortegas that I would love to see her play against. In season one, in our finale of season one, we had an episode that mirrored this iconic episode from TOS, the original series, and it also shows you too how much of like a Trekkie I've become. That like I'll say TOS in like conversation, and people will be like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Oh, the original series. You don't know that?"
What?
But it's in it's
You know that,
and so
Nate?
it mirrors the episode, and she plays a version of herself that our director, our amazing director producer Chris Fisher, said to me. He was like going into the episode. He was like, we all love Ortegas. He's like, everybody wants to get a drink with Ortegas. Like she gels with everyone on the ship. He's like, this episode, we want an Ortegas we do not like. And
Mm.
so we delivered that. And then it was interesting when like fans were just like, why was she so, she was so angry and she was so this and she was so, had an issue with the Romulans, because of backstory that was baked into that episode about, the fact that they were able to get away with things with, seeming impunity, and so how
Well, the
that
Romulans
colored.
are, they're usually frustrating anyway. So
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But like the way that and then she had this, everybody loves Ortegas's and Pike's rapport on the bridge, and it was the opposite. And I just remember even like doing that episode where like Pike, who's played perfectly by Anson Mount, where he has to like yell at, or he basically yells at Ortegas, like it's such a such a jarring thing. But I loved that episode because I got to play against, what I usually would do as Ortegas. So I would love, I mean, I would love. We've done so much in the world of Star Trek, not necessarily in Strange New Worlds, in mirror universes. But I would love to see a darker, more calculated, villainous Ortegas, just because I'd be so curious what that would be like,
Mm.
And as an actor, it would give me a lot to play with and do, and a whole new story to tell. So, but I would also, and I've said this plenty, so this is nothing new. Where it's like I'd love to do a Western, especially because we have Anson in our show.
Yeah,
If you've ever seen, and if you have not, you should. Hell on Wheels.
it's one of my
I'd
favorite
love to
shows of
do
all
like,
time.
I love that.
I love that show. Yeah.
Um, I'd love to do like a Western or something where you just see Ortegas in a world, in a setting that you have not seen her in yet.
And then because we are rapidly running out of time, I'm gonna ask my question, which is what I ask at the end of every one of these to people that are operating at a high level in the industry. Um, what advice do you have for young artists graduating and entering the industry now? It is wildly different from when we first entered. What do you suggest that they do to get their foot in the door?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I would say, um, I would say a few things. Is definitely have that support system. That is hands down the most important thing. And for me, it was my immediate family, my sisters, my parents. My mom and dad have always just been the most supportive in the world, and my brother-in-laws and my Brian, and but for anyone that can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, right? So that could be a really tight, group of friends. But to surround yourself with people who don't question what you're doing, right? Because so often as artists and actors, we're kind of, people expect us to just kind of like give it up at some point, and do something that has a bit more, what's the word? Staying power, for lack of a better word, right? So
Mm,
you need to surround yourself, or you don't need to, but I would suggest, have people that, like, because you are going to get a lot of rejection, right? So on your own, you need to be very sure about what you're doing. Fake it till you make it, even if, at times you do doubt. There just has to be a level of, in my experience, of healthy cockiness, where it's like you believe in yourself and you think you are great, and you legitimately know that you are bringing something to this that nobody else can bring, and then to be surrounded by people who remind you and celebrate all of that, right? Like if you have people negative in your life about acting, about artistry, about you don't need that,
yeah,
goodbye.
yeah,
But
no,
especially now, like you said, like it's a very different world than what we were seeing 15 years ago. But at the end of the day, it's all really the same, right? We're telling stories. We're trying to get on a show, a film, on stage in a production that that we can do something that nobody else can in that role, right? And casting directors are trying to solve a problem by finding the right people. And when they find those right people, it's awesome. And it's just it remains the same. It's just the way to get there is different. And right now it's all self-taping. I hear a lot of people are going back in the room. But even like with Star Trek, I'm like, really, it happened in self-tape world. Like my callback, my massive callback happened over Zoom and I was
Yeah.
standing in my apartment, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, so like feeling like, I would say to not feel like, oh, you missed out because, you know, you don't get that, you won't necessarily get all the time that we did to get in a room and stand in front of a casting director and, you know, establish this relationship over time. Like don't waste any time being like, oh, everything is terrible and everything would have been better if I'd started 10 years ago. Or, you know,
Yeah.
if the industry had been like that. Because it's like, no, because 10 years ago it also had its own issues. Like every time, everything, you know, has its own new set of problems. So deal with what we're dealing with now. Um, and and just I would say too, it's just like if there's anything else, like I say this more to people who like are much younger and haven't yet, you know, they're not graduating and really going in and doing it, but like if there's anything else in this world that makes stories and being on a set and you know waiting months and sometimes years for you know for your work to be broadcast to the greater world, if there's anything else that brings you that amount of joy and that makes you happy and that you know fulfills you, I would say do that.
Mm.
um and if nothing else does, then be so grateful that you have the talent and the skill that you do and pursue it knowing that your journey is different from everybody else's. That's the other big thing is do not compare your journey to anybody else's. Um, and and pursue it like there is no tomorrow because there may be no tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
you know, pursue it and find the joy in the moments, in the auditions, in the meeting people, in the read throughs, in the scene work, in all that stuff. And and yeah, I mean, it sounds little like little like too uh, optimistic, but I'm like you have to be to a certain extent. So I would say all those things. I just said a bunch of things, but just that's the big thing. It's just like nobody's going to do it like you, and if you want to
Right.
do it, believe that you are going to do it. Like for me, that was very much being like there is no other option here. There's no safety net. But for a lot of different reasons, I was able to do that, and I was supported by people, and um, you know, like for me, being in New York, being a New York actor, you know how many times people were just like, "Oh, you know, if you want to make a film and TV, you have to go to LA, and if you're in New York, you got to do a lot more theater." And I was like, "I love theater. Like theater to me is the I love theater. I love opera. Brian loved opera. We went to the he took me to the Met all the time. My father, growing up, huge opera fan, classical music
Yeah.
fan. Um, and so being in New York, like one of my favorite things is going to live theater. And yet my focus as an actor was always film and TV. And people a lot of times would question what I was doing. They're like, you have to go to LA if you want to do film and TV. And I went to LA for a short bit and I did work out there and I was like, New York is my home. I am such a New Yorker. I love New York so much. I'm gonna go back to New York and I'm going to make it in film and TV and I'm gonna come back around to theater. And so
You
many
can do
people would tell
both
me,
here. Like there's no
you can
reason
do,
that
oh my
you
God,
can't. I do both
absolutely.
here. Yeah, like it's
Absolutely. But the amount of people though that were just it was that whole idea of like this is how it has to be done. If you want to do this, you have to go here. And if you're here, you have to and I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm gonna do it my way. And I feel like I'm doing that. And so I'm
you are.
able to be in a position now where I can be just like, yeah, I did it. And I'm still doing it, right? Everything is always changing and moving and that's a good thing. But that's the biggest thing is just like do it your way and you will be so much better for it and you will thank yourself. And you can thank me in a small way because I just told
I
you.
just told you. Yeah, but that's absolutely true. Is that the only way that you can do anything is your way. And if anybody is trying to get you to pay them to tell you a way to do things, don't give them your money,
No.
because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yes,
They
definitely
know,
right. Yeah.
yeah, they know
Yeah.
one way that someone did that they're trying to sell you as the way through. Uh, don't. I mean, and if it's more than $50, don't pay more than $50.
Yeah, dude.
Certain,
Oh, Josh. Yeah, yeah. We know, we've seen all sorts of things, but like as actors, I think not only are we so I love actors so much, but because we are so giving and empathetic and we want to tell stories and we want to do the work, that sometimes um, you see people who want it so badly that they get taken advantage of, and that
Yeah,
just
all the time,
burns me.
constantly. Yeah,
Yeah, we see it happening all over the place. So the biggest thing is just like that there is no one correct way to do a thing. And if anyone is ever making you feel like there is and that it's their way or no way, or they make you feel in any way that you are, you are throwing it all away if you're not doing it their way, uh, alarms should go off, red flags all the way, because there is no one way. And what I would say to avoid is anybody making you feel like there is.
yeah, because everyone's career is its own magical unicorn, literally. And it yeah. So
And is
all
also
right.
the result of so much, is
Mm-hmm.
also the result of so many people, of so many things. And so that's very important. It's like when you get to wherever you get to, and you're going to keep getting to new places, like it's been a whole village. It takes a village to do all that. And so yeah, we'll leave that there. But you and I know that, we've just seen all sorts of crazy things, and the
All
biggest
sorts
thing
of
is
still
all
do,
sorts of crazy
still
things.
do.
Still
Yeah,
seeing those crazy
still seeing those
things.
crazy things, still upsetting me
I
every
know.
day. Yeah.
Oh, well, we have to hang out when I'm back in New York.
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we are going to for sure. You have to
Yeah.
meet my kids.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. I can't wait.
Yeah, hell yeah. And come to my house and
Love it.
we'll eat burgers and shit. But
Love
thank
it.
you
Oh,
so much for being here. This was so much fun. To the people who asked a bunch of questions, I'm sorry that we couldn't get to you. But uh I'll have to have Melissa back again. This was great, and I really appreciate it, and have a great day on set tomorrow.
amazing. I will. Thank you so much, Josh. Let's totally do this again. And yeah, everybody, season 3 comes out next month, June 17th, and we're working on season 4 now, and just lots of great Trek to come.
And if you have Paramount Plus, like I did, you can make Melissa your avatar. And if you haven't, then you are dumb. Um, all right. Good night.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. And
Of course.
everybody, thank you guys for watching. I don't
Thank
actually know
you.
how to sign out of this. I'm going to let you
I
do it.
will kick you out. Don't
All
worry. All
right,
right.
cool.
Goodbye. All right, everybody. Since we're doing the show in reverse, um, hi. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks so much for all of your comments. And all of your cool questions. Um, and hey, Brian Baldwin, I've seen all of your questions. I've seen Happy Father's Day to you, sir. Also, um, I'm sorry I didn't get to ask your question about which is the favorite Trek, but I also agree with you that uh, talent and skill are never negotiable, which is very very true. Um, as for what I'm feeling, there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot going on in our country. And like I usually do, I try to um, impart some optimism or some hopefulness, and I still do, and I still am extremely hopeful. The protests yesterday were on not yesterday. Was that yesterday? No, that was on Saturday, were extremely heartening. I loved to see it. There were so many people out um, exercising their voices and peacefully protesting, and just taking advantage of their rights, rights that we are very lucky to have in our country, and that we better fucking continue to have moving forward. So if you can't get out to a protest, there are lots of other ways that you can make your voice heard. You can post, you can help organize, you can amplify other people's voices. But in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can do is speak to your elected officials, however you want to and however they are available, whether it's via the internet or email or calling them and leaving a message. It really does go a long way. They do want to hear from you, and there are people that it's happening less and less and less. And it is literally the most effective way for an elected official to know what the fuck their constituents want. So do that. Go talk to them. Tell them what you want to see moving forward, and how we want to move forward in our country. It's scary. It's a bit scary right now. I mean, it has been rapidly moving towards a thing that is scary. Uh, as a father, it's scary to see the things changing, potentially for healthcare, potentially for women's rights across the country, because of I am a father of two girls. This immigration stuff is extremely terrifying and very scary. Just ICE raiding elementary schools and graduations and blah blah blah, and the list goes on and on and on. Very disheartening and very concerning, and also very horrifying. Things need to change drastically. Whatever you believe or however you believe things need to change, whatever you feel about the current immigration status or the immigration system or how things work in our country, what is currently going on, the suspension of due process, the rhetoric about how everyone is a rapist or a murderer or a criminal that is being deported, that is flatly not true. It hasn't been historically. Most people coming here are seeking asylum, or they're trying to escape a toxic, horrible regime, or they're just looking for a better life for their families. There are towns in Texas where workers walk across the borders and work in American like places. They work in the restaurants, they work in the shops, and they openly walk back and forth across the border. And it's been this way for generations. It's been this way for decades. Immigration is what our country is built on. The country wouldn't exist without immigration. People say that it should be done the right way. And when you're fleeing oppression and death, what is the right way? When you're fleeing poverty and pain, what is the right way? There is no more Ellis Island. That's what was happening during World War II. People were fleeing poverty and pain and destruction and horror, and they got to do it through Ellis Island, and someone wrote their name in a book, and they got to come in. We don't have that anymore. We have weird, hard to deal with wait lists and processing times and shit like that. Now, I'm not saying that it should just be a fucking free-for-all, but it also shouldn't be people getting sent to murder camps in El Salvador. There's got to be a better way, and there definitely is a better way. It's one that isn't led through fear, one that isn't ripping entire families apart, things of that nature. It's why there are protests happening. It's for multiple reasons, but we are a country that is built upon freedom and in what I thought was caring for each other and picking each other up. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud of what we try to do. And right now it's a scary time. It's a time of idealism and a time of no conversation. We can't talk to each other. If you believe in something so much and the other person believes in something so much, we don't, most people aren't thinking anymore. They're just regurgitating talking points that they've heard. critical thinking has gone by the wayside, and it's extremely concerning. We need to critically think. We need to question. We need to think for ourselves. We can't just be told something and go, yup, that's true. That leads us down a very slippery slope that there is no return from. I believe that we can, and I think that we will. This is a 100-year cycle. Every 100 years we go through this. So let's see if we make it out of this one, right? I think we will. That's a lot of talking. I'm going to let everybody go. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. If you're hearing this on the podcast, thank you much for listening. And I will see y'all next week for another great show. Thanks. Bye.